So I'm here with Craig, who is the co-founder of Runr clothing brand. You can see that on his shirt right here. So Craig recently got into ultra running with, I think, the co-founder of Runr. It's Matt, isn't it? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. He's off to do a 50 miler on Saturday. Are you still building up to the 100 miler? Is that still the long-term goal?
It's still in the diary, and I think Saturday will dictate whether I feel like I'm on course for it. So,
quite how, yeah. I mean, 50 miles is mental. I've run a marathon once, and I haven't done it since. So it's always something. And I think, like, broadly speaking, Craig came to me to have a little bit of a look at his nutrition, like related to that goal. But I will let Craig tell you all about that. So just to kick us off, Craig, just like for benefit of the audience, you tell us a little about yourself, maybe, and who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I started my own business, Runr, about 6 years ago. I've always been into running. Football was my main hobby when I was young, but then as I've got older, I turned 40 in November last year, just got into running, and then it was 6 years ago, decided to start basically just to create a brand for runners. And it's meant I've been able to work in the world of running, of which it's a sport I'm really passionate about, and it's been really good to kind of work in that area. I've done 4 marathons over the years. I've done London a couple of times, been fortunate to go away and do some runs, and then done numerous 10Ks. I live in Portsmouth here on the south coast. We've got the Great South Run here, so I've done that probably 7 or 8 times. But what's hard is home life, wife, 2 young kids, running my own business, juggling everything. So yeah, it's been it's good fun, but it's tiring and hard work. And yeah, as you say, I sort of reached out to you back end of last year.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Signed up for South Downs Way 50, which is this coming Saturday. So first ultra, lovely 50 miles on the South Downs Way from Worthing to Eastbourne. And yeah, I just basically, I think it was in October, I'd been on a family holiday after 2 years of postponing it for obvious reasons, and just overindulged for like 3 or 4 days of food and drink and catching up with family. And just on the way back, I was like, I do it a lot of just overindulging in stuff. And I just thought, you know what, I just want to sort something out, which is why I kind of reached out to you. And that's where we started, really.
Yeah, cool. So I guess what kind of problem, you talked a little bit about there, so the overindulgence, but what, like, if you break that down a bit further, what sort of problems were you looking to solve in the day-to-day? Because obviously you're quite experienced runner, so you must have been doing a half decent job of fueling that in the past, but that's where were you looking to improve on that?
I think I've always sort of eaten fairly healthily. I think, as a lot of people have experienced, lockdown, you end up probably drinking a little bit more than you should do. And I've got a sweet tooth. So because I run my own business, I can pick my laptop up and go and sit in a cafe and work, or take it anywhere. So I'd often always find myself grabbing a coffee and a cake, or grabbing just not the healthiest of foods. I think I've come to realize as I've hit 40 that drinking alcohol just really affects your sleep. And I think with lockdown and stuff like that, it was obvious that you need to, the better quality sleep you can have is so much better for you as a person. So I think that I kind of knew what I was doing wrong, in the sense of I could eat better but also cut out some of the bad stuff. But I think for me personally, it needs me to sit down with someone to go through my current state and say, right, this could be the future state. So it wasn't massive changes, but it was definitely kind of reviewing what I was eating and drinking and consuming, also thinking about the longer runs, and a case of, right, what do I need to be? It's not just a case of the night before you can have a bowl of pasta. It's kind of conditioning your body for, where are we now? April, 4 months, a period of time where that whole time I'm constantly eating the right things and improving the kind of the state that I was in, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess, like, how would you kind of explain the process of what we went through to get you from kind of where you were at when we first started to where you are now?
I think that the first piece was what I didn't want to do was come into the process and almost calorie count everything that I eat and drink. And I think that going into the process, the first thing was to start writing down or measuring what you're eating and what you're consuming. And straight away you can see, right, of a normal week, I'll eat cakes, and with the two young boys, it's easy to chuck fish fingers, chips and peas on for them, and I'm eating some of their dinner. I'm then cooking my own dinner, so I'm basically having like 1.5 dinners each day. And then you start to break it down and go, right, what am I eating? What's the good stuff in there? How do I maybe just cut down on some of the stuff that isn't the best for me, and what can I introduce that would be better for me? And I think that, again, it's not rocket science, but it took that for me to understand, you know what, I don't need to go and get a cake every time I get a coffee. I'm 6'3", I'm 13.5 stone. I don't put on weight, so I'm really fortunate. But at the same time, the amount of sugars I was probably eating wasn't the best for running 4 times a week and going into those longer distances. So I found it really useful, and I know we use the app, which you can input all your food and your drink you're eating and drinking into. One thing I also realized, I wasn't eating, I think the average adult male should consume 2,500 calories a day. I wasn't getting anywhere near that. And I think what was really interesting was by going through this process, I felt like I was eating a lot, but I wasn't, and what I was eating wasn't necessarily the best. So it made me realize I do need to consume a bit more to replenish the calories and build myself up, but then also what I am eating, make it healthier and better for conditioning my body.
Yeah, it's like a blend, isn't it? So it's like as soon as you start eating a bit healthier, the calories come down, but you still need to support all the exercise. So you're getting all this like great nutrition that's making you feel great.
Yep.
And you're plowing out 30 odd miles, and you need to put some of that back, and that's not going to come from broccoli and lettuce.
Yeah. We've got a great cake shop about 3-minute walk from my house. So post the 20-mile run, they were getting a visit anyway. So it wasn't a case of cutting out all that bad stuff. It was just a case of sort of minimizing it. And I'll be honest, I still love getting a coffee and a cake, but I don't miss that. It's more of a, rather than a regular treat, it's just kind of a once a week or something. I don't think to myself, have I had cake this week? It's now just a case of I don't do it all the time. So it's a lot more disciplined.
Yeah, it's been more like a bit more of a conscious choice rather than like the coffee comes along with a cake without you even thinking about it. Yeah. Great. I guess so. Compared to how you, like before we started working together, how does that compare to what you maybe thought it would be like? You mentioned like you thought maybe it'd be like calorie counting, and perhaps a lot of people think it's going to be like, here's a meal plan, do that, and it's like more instruction rather than. Well, my view is that I'm kind of guiding you along the way, giving you just enough information to find your own way along that path. But I'd be interested to see how you feel about that kind of perception.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, the first bit was inputting sort of on a daily basis what you were eating. It was good to start with, and then I know I sort of tailed off doing it because on a weekly, fortnightly basis, I then know that we have a set number of meals we go through and stuff like that. So, but it was really good to build up an idea of, right, if I'm aiming for 2,500 calories a day, this is what I need to eat. This is how many times I need to eat it. I know I reached out to you about recipes, foods that are high in protein. So stuff like yogurt, stuff like your dried meats, our evening meals are genuinely pretty good. So, and we eat pretty sizable ones, so that wasn't a problem. I think so once the initial bit of kind of mapping out what I was eating and drinking, I'd done that enough. That was quite good to tail off. I think the app that you've got was really good because there was lots of recipes on there. I didn't probably use them as much as I'd like to, just because of home life is just hard to get out and get all the stuff. But yeah, that was really good. And then I think that the suggestions around the snacking during the day, it gave me ideas around what I can do differently from what I was doing before. So I think that what I've ended up doing, and I'm broadly, well, obviously it's got the run on Saturday, but I'm still broadly sticking to it. It's not as, what I didn't want to do is fall into a trap of having to look on an app every single day from day one through to the run, which I don't do. But that's what I prefer, is that it's almost, I've trained it into me that the best way to condition myself is by doing the things that we've kind of run through. So I felt the process was really good, and I'll mark you after the run on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll see how you get on. Sing my praises just yet. Is anything along that journey that kind of surprised you at all? You learn?
I think, to be fair, I was quite pleased in the sense of a lot of the foods we eat at home were actually ones you suggested. So I think that sometimes myself and my other half, Laura, we're both busy. As I said, we've got the young boys. She's up in London a couple of days a week. So it's kind of, we sometimes feel there's not much planning and prep time, but we've used, who do we use at the moment? Mindful Chef.
Yeah, brilliant.
We get meals from them. So they're really good because we do love cooking, but since family life is so manic at the moment, it's a case of Mindful Chef turns up and you've got a box with your protein, your veg, your carbs in there, half an hour to cook it.
I do this.
Meal, decent portion sizes. Yeah, it's really good. So, but yeah, I think for me personally, I'm someone that needs a plan to follow. And I think as much as I've written training plan for myself leading up to this 50 miler, I've done training plans before. I've done 4 marathons. I've done other events before. So the running side of it, I know what I'm doing. The nutritional side, I might have been able to go away and do my own research, but I think working with yourself was really good to make me understand, especially the protein side of things, was how I can eat more protein. One thing that I've improved upon loads has been my recovery from runs. And I think that I've been taking SIS recovery shakes after every run. I've been having protein shakes every other day. I've been eating more protein than before. And I think the mix of protein and carbs has just helped me recover a lot quicker. I think I did a 30-mile training run a few weeks ago, and I could have gone out the following day because I felt really, considering it's 30 miles, which is the furthest I've ever run in one go. Normally after a marathon, I'm in bits for a few days, but I actually, the following day, I was like, crikey, I don't feel like I've run 30 miles. I didn't go for a run. I sat on the sofa, which is fine. But the cake shop did get a visit. So I think it's kind of, it made me realize that I do some things really well, but it then definitely put me on track to do things I probably wouldn't have had the self-control to do.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting point, that, because I think when we look to your food diary, pretty much like virtually every single one of my clients, especially if they've got some sort of athletic ambition, could probably do with a bit more protein in their diet. But for me, it's like trying to help you find an easy way to do that. And for you, it was a shake, because it's almost an automatic behavior. Like, I finish my run, I have that shake. Like it's just, it just becomes this pattern. Trainers off, have the shake, and that all contributes. Clearly, like, you can't just go out and run a 30-miler tomorrow and feel great regardless of how much protein you eat. You have to train for that. But I think the important thing is you do feel good, and you can kind of Google all that stuff, but then how you put it into your own life with the boys and Laura and family cooking and all that is the tricky bit. And hopefully we've kind of managed to solve that for you through the program.
Yeah. And I think that, as I said before, going away and researching stuff on your own, you can get so many different views which contradict each other. So, and for me, it's kind of, I think that's why, obviously, I know yourself, I know what you've been doing with food flexibility. So it's kind of a case of, rather than doing my own thing, reach out to yourself, who's an expert in that area, and follow your kind of advice on it. So for me, it was kind of it sort of saves me all the hassle of trying to do all the research myself as well. So
brilliant, awesome. So I guess, like, the last question then, I normally sort of ask people in this bit how your life has changed a little bit. You talked about maybe like you're quite confident in planning your own training around the running. Would you say you could almost do that nutrition wise now for yourself?
Yeah, I think obviously I've got a 50 miler this week. I've got potentially got the 100 miler in the summer, in June sometime. But I think it's almost, for me, aside of these ultras, I think that running, one, is great for me physically. Two, it's great for mental health. And I think a lot of people use running, whether it's going to the gym, swimming, whatever it is. And I think that by doing exercise more, I think the more you have a nutritionally improved diet, your body is in a much healthier position. So I think even if the 100 miler wasn't on the cards, I'd still probably carry on doing what I'm doing, because I've not gone out of my way to implement the plans that we created. So I think I'll stick to it. I think I think that I'd be quite confident in kind of not giving advice to other people, but definitely for myself, close friends and stuff, it's kind of like, this is my experience, this is what I did. I don't see why it shouldn't work for other people. Yeah, and then hopefully I'll just stick to it. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Great. I'm gonna throw a curveball in now and just say, if you were to sum up the whole thing in maybe 3 words, what would you pick as those 3?
Sum it up in 3 words. I'd probably confidence, in the sense of what the plan that was in place. I had confidence from yourself that it was the right thing to do. I think routine, when I say routine, is that I didn't want to do something that I'd have to change my routine to achieve. And what I've been able to do is just incorporate it into my life and the routine I have in general. And I guess with that, maybe consistency, is that I've been able to, we started the process. I think I reached out, as I said before, the end of last year. So it's been a good 4-month process. But it's been consistent. It's not like we've got to stages we've had to up things or change things or do things differently. It might be different for other people you work with, but for me, it's just been consistent throughout, which has meant I haven't had to suddenly sit down and think, oh, things are changing this week, what have I got to do? I just know what the plan has been the whole time. That what has changed has been my running, but then I know that because I've been building up and building up and building up. So yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, and I think the things that help that is that actually you're in the driving seat and I'm just helping you kind of navigate the little road bumps. You're making the big decisions because you're the one cooking dinner. You're the one picking up the knife and fork. Right? So I can't control those things. So we need to give you the tools to control them for yourself. So yeah, great. Well, thanks for your time, mate. And then we'll wrap up the recording there.